Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is yet to vacate his office following calls for him to resign. His official residence has been occupied by protesters for some time now, forcing him to flee to safety. The unprecedented demonstrations have been ongoing in that country since March this year, as Sri Lanka faces the worst economic crisis, we're told, in 7 decades. Let's get a better sense of what's taking place there now. Bring in strategic affairs expert Dr. Monica Verma, who joins us via our video link this morning. It's lovely to have you on the program, Doc. Thanks very much indeed for making time. And my goodness, we've seen what's been described as revolutionary scenes coming out of Sri Lanka over the past couple of days. And that was precipitated by untold stories of economic hardship, thousands of people taking part here. I wonder whether we've come at a point where we're able to quantify the cost of what's taken place there so far.
First of all, thank you so much, Newzroom Afrika, for inviting me for this discussion. I think it's difficult to quantify the cost right now because events are still unfolding. But whatever is happening in Sri Lanka is truly unfortunate because, if you look at the past history of Sri Lanka, it's a very good country in South Asia with a high development index and the level of education, the quality of living has all been very impressive. Even if we compare it to India, all the vital indicators were much better in terms of quality of life. But the story went wrong when we look at their economic situation, the way they have taken so much loan and unsustainable loans, so to say. So they've been very dependent on other sources of funding, not really working on their economic indicators in terms of the kind of, fiscal deficit that they have, the foreign exchange reserve that was quickly running out, and their over-dependence to sustain their economy on certain actors such as the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank and China and Japan. So the entire amount of loan that they have taken has become unsustainable. And then the policies that have definitely went wrong, the entire food security question, the way they have given upon their food security by banning the use of fertilizer and chemicals and just focusing on organic farming, which itself has not shown much results in other developed countries. And Sri Lanka just trying to implement that as a solution, as a knee-jerk response to their food security has been absolutely unfortunate. So for now, we do not have the cost of how much it's really going to cost Sri Lanka because, these visuals that are coming are very sad, they're very tragic. And in a way, it's poetic justice being served. If you look at what's happening in the presidential palace, these people enjoying themselves in the swimming pool and using the treadmill, going to the gym and enjoying the lavish lifestyle that the president has enjoyed so far, while a common Sri Lankan was toiling, was working hard and did not have access to all these things. Yeah. All he wanted was employment, a good standard of living, a good quality of life. But the elite did not listen to them. They did not heed to their concerns.
Sure. And
now what we see is sort of a poetic justice being served.
In fact, we've seen reports of people being taken aback by the level of affluence that they actually saw once they were able to get into that palace because of the hardships that they were facing on the ground, as it were. But, many people who are taking part in this protest are not just calling for the president to step down. It's actually much broader than that. The Rajapaksas, who have been in leadership positions in that country for quite some time, are being blamed for this economic tailspin in Sri Lanka. To what extent do you think this moment marks the end of that family's handle and hold over the country?
Well, I think it's quite over for them. And this is writing on the wall, since the entire economic situation has overturned in January, Sri Lanka for the first time declared that they are staring hard at the most vulnerable situation in their economy, the biggest economic crisis since their independence in 1948 from the British. And since January, if you look at the events today, one person, one family, one person who has been blamed so much is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and the entire, Rajapaksa family. So it's not just Gotabaya, but the entire Mahinda Rajapaksa and other people of their family have been quite powerful. And in India, especially in South Asia, we all look at dynastic rules, and people have time and again protested against such rules which you do not prove. In fact, they quite prove counterproductive to a country's growth and development because, one family, one party is always looking for their own interest. They don't quietly look at the interest of the entire country. So, they did not set their house in the order. They did not focus on building the economy right from scratch. So we are not talking about a Sri Lanka, which is a normal country. It was a conflict-ridden country. And after the entire civil war ended, after the entire ethnic question was solved, they needed to go back to the whiteboard and draw up a plan for concrete development of Sri Lanka. But instead of doing that, the Rajapaksa family was busy in advancing their own political interests. And they wanted to stay in power for as long as possible. And due to that, many problems were created. So I just gave you the example of food security. They never focused on international trade. Only one sector, tourism, was the sector that they were mostly dependent on. And they were also dependent on remittances. Now tell me, in a COVID pandemic hit world, how far can you believe that the tourism sector or the remittances are going to flow in and keep the economy going? So you need to focus on international trade. You need to focus on diversifying your export basket that Sri Lanka never did. And obviously the brunt is going to be, it's going to be fulfilled. All of this the blame is going to go to the Rajapaksa family, and now they are focusing on how to escape for their lives. And that's why there were reports that he fled. But he hasn't left the country really. Yesterday there were reports that he may be going to some other country, but not before tendering the formal resignation and not, taking care of all his responsibilities, and then maybe leaving for safer shores. So it's definitely the end for the Rajapaksa family, and it's definitely the end for dynastic politics. And I think it's a good opportune moment for Sri Lankans to do some introspection, do some soul searching, and look for leaders who can take Sri Lanka to the path that it truly deserves.
Yeah, absolutely. This moment has led to political reform. At least it looks like it's heading there. I wonder where we'll begin when we try roll out economic reform there. Dr. Monica Verma, thanks very much indeed for helping us better contextualize what's taking place in that country. Dr. Verma is a strategic affairs expert as we continue watching the story unfold in Sri Lanka.